Let's see here. Good morning, good morning. Welcome to In the Garden with Joyful Living. I am your host, Kimberly Dixon. Today we have with us a very special guest, but we're going to give it just a few minutes to see if we get some people that are going to tune in this morning. Guys, when you come on, let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if the broadcast, because it's kind of overcast today, if the broadcast is going out. Well, we need to hear from you. So while we are waiting for people to join us, I'm not going to introduce you yet. I want the people to know who you are. But why did you want to come and visit the Joyful Living Garden?
I think, and we're going to talk about this, I'm sure, more, but in our current culture, you know, we are all about the counterculture. Like, what is more counterculture than a garden? And in our culture where we are inundated with everything being instant, like, what is more non-instant than a garden?
All right.
So, you know, and I love what you're doing, and I love the message that you're spreading, you know, about joyful living, and you know, we travel in the same circle.
Absolutely. So before we get started, let me tell you something. So we met each other through a networking group, and I would say that we were business associates. But I can tell you the very moment that we became friends. I don't know if you remember it, but it was the benefit dinner with that Kimberly Hines Winborn did with Brian Kane with Chef Vaughn. And we were working that night for VNC, but we ended up sitting next to each other.
Yeah.
And everything that Chef Vaughn sent out, we would hunch each other and be like, "Did you taste that? That was good." It was like, "Oh my God!" And we literally did that the whole night. So we ended up talking. And you know, after that night, I would consider us to be friends and not just associates. But it just goes back to this whole thing about food. Gardening is about community. Food is so much of it is a social aspect of it and community. So we bonded over some food. Good morning, Pamela. So we're going to go ahead and get started because we've got some people watching this morning.
Let me remember to share.
Yes, go ahead and share.
Cannot forget that.
Absolutely not. Like, when you got something good, you got to let the people know about it. So I hope everyone is doing all right. Pamela, thank you for joining us from the West Coast. We're so excited. We're always excited to have everyone on, and it's always good to see your smiling faces, and it's just really joyous to be able to share this time with you all. So I have a special guest this morning in the garden, and why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
So I go by the name of Al the Great. I call myself your neighborhood counterculturalist. And I am one of the creators behind Good Steward Apparel, which I'm sure we're going to kind of interchange before. But and one of the things, like, I am a comic book geek. So that's where the neighborhood counterculturalist comes from, you know, like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So it's how I interchange a lot of, you know, who I am with what my interests are. And it's just, you know, and it's funny how God works things out.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I like about you is that you're a counterculturalist. Gardening is contrary to the culture that we currently live in. And the things that you do are definitely contrary to what we see in society today. So some things in life you got to be able to take a stand on them. And one of the most important things is being you.
Yep.
And I learned that a long time ago. Nobody can be a better you than you.
Yeah, and that is definitely a risk. That's a risk that you have to take each and every day, because, you know, some people may accept you and some people may not, but you will always feel better and feel more purposeful and fulfilled, like being yourself.
Yeah. So good morning, Amanda. Said, "Girl, I saw your mama Wednesday." So you mentioned Good Steward. Well, let's talk about your name first. I recently learned that you're known as Al the Great in many, many circles. So tell us about that. What is that about? Al the Great.
So I have I grew up as a kid with very low self-esteem. And
Good morning, Gwen. Good morning, Tara.
Good morning, my cousin Tara.
Hey, family.
But so I grew up as a kid with low self-esteem, very low self-esteem, and I would say I was always searching for my greatness. But maybe some years ago, and I was someone that did not think highly of myself, didn't have enough value within myself, and even as an adult, it's something I struggled with. So I was doing something, and how the Holy Spirit speaks. I was trying to figure out an email to use for like something. I don't even remember what it was, but I had this old email, and it had like Al the Great, and I made it kind of like tongue in cheek because I couldn't think of anything else at the time.
Right.
And it was like some years ago, like maybe like 5 years before that. So I'm trying to figure out what email to use, and I use that email, and then the Holy Spirit tells me, go by Al the Great.
Wow.
And I'm like, nah, they gonna think I'm arrogant. Like, I was like, nah. But as I start to deep dive into this idea about greatness and learn more about why the Holy Spirit was saying that, and I tell a lot of people this, like, one of the things that is very counterculture is that, like, we are greatness. Like, we don't have to like search for it, but we spend all this time trying to search for it. Like, we are a product of greatness. So if we're saying God is great, we know God is more than great. We are in God's image, God's likeness. We are an instrument of his power. The least we can be is great. Like, that is the very minimum. So,
that is good stuff.
So I was like, I'm Al the Great. Why not? And everybody else is great. And I think that's one of my missions to ensure that people know that they're valued, and stop searching for something that you already are.
Yeah. So one of the things that I like the most about what you said is that sometimes the Holy Spirit will do things years early, and you have no idea what the significance is.
Yeah.
So we're in the Joyful Living Garden. My business is Joyful Living with Kimberly Dixon. So years ago, I made a board at the beginning of the year, a vision board. Put all my stuff on it. After I became a life coach, when I say years later, I still had that vision board. So January 1st, I was doing a goal setting workshop, and I took my old vision board, and I'm up in front of the people, and I look down at my vision board, and in the center, dead center of it, was the words joyful living. I dropped it on the stage. And I was like, oh my goodness. And they were like, oh, what's wrong? So I had to tell them the backstory. It's like, guys, I made this years ago when I was in chronic pain every day and just suffering. And this is what I wanted my life to look like, joyful living. And did not look at that board when I was coming up with the name of my business, because I tossed around all these different names with different people. And they some of the other names they like better, and I was like, nope, joyful living is calling me.
Yeah.
And when I saw it on that board, I was like, look at you, God. I was like, that was you giving me a peek into my future, and I didn't even realize it. So I love everything that you said about greatness, because sometimes people confuse being arrogant with confidence. And we all should be confident, because like you said, we are created in God's image, and the Holy Spirit resides in us. We are great.
And that's the other thing that God kind of showed me, like to not be confident as a product of God is to call God a liar.
Yes, it is.
It's like you are greatness. God put all this stuff in you, and it seems like the world tries so hard to make you feel like, and to devalue you, and just kind of lie to you.
Yeah. Speaking of greatness, you have this phenomenal clothing line, and as everyone can see, I am wearing a vintage relationship over religion. I love the little that is you gotta get it. Do you get it? Relationship over religion by Good Steward Apparel. Why did you give the clothing line that name?
So when I was starting, the idea of good stewardship, and lately God has been taking me back to creation. So the first job that God gave man was stewardship. God did all that he wanted to do, and then he gave man stewardship because that's what he could do. Mm-hmm. And good stewardship is the way that we pay our rent for living in this society.
Boy, you better go ahead. Don't let me run around this garden.
Like it is our job as everyone. God gives you talents, gifts, all these things. Like it is how we pay our rent for being here. Mm-hmm. Like and people normally think of stewardship thinking about religion. In religion, I was taught stewardship as just your money, but stewardship is everything. It is like the smile you give off. Like as long as you have teeth and the ability to smile.
If
like
you
being
ain't got
able
no
to
teeth, go ahead and smile.
Smile anyway. Like as long as you have the ability to smile, like you steward that well by giving people a smile. Like your smile can change the trajectory of somebody's day.
When you make people feel seen. My sister and I were having a conversation on yesterday, somehow or another we got to talking about what it feels like when you feel invisible, and we talked about how when I was wearing the leg brace and using the cane, that I felt invisible because people stopped looking at me, they stopped smiling at me, and I think, and she mentioned that when people have a disability or a handicap, whatever the word is that people prefer to use, they don't want to make you feel bad, but in turn they stop giving you any kind of attention.
Yeah.
And that makes you feel invisible.
Yeah. And
there is no worse feeling in the world to feel like nobody sees you. So when you see somebody, smile at them. I don't care what they look like. They look like you. They don't look like you. They short, tall, fat, skinny, disabled, whatever it may be. Let them know that you see them. Yeah. Like you matter to me.
One of the things that aggravates me most, and you hear a lot of people in like service jobs, like when you are going to check out at your cashier or you're going to get coffee and people aren't looking at the people. Like they're in their phones, they're talking on the phones. Like people were made for connection. Yeah, like you said, like people were made for community. Like by you not engaging people, like it makes people feel a certain way inside.
Yeah.
And they may not ever recognize it, but there's like something going on in our subconscious and that person and yours when we don't engage each other.
Well, yeah, one of the things I'm very conscious of is when I'm checking out, I'm not texting anybody, I'm not taking phone calls, because I've been a cashier, and I know some customers make you feel great, and other ones make you feel like, I hate the world.
Yeah. And
it's like, so I always take just that moment to share with the person, if it's a young person or older person, to encourage them. I'll be on a mission every day. My son be like, well, you got to talk to everybody. And I'm like, yeah, I do. But you've mentioned the word counterculture multiple times since we started talking. Mm-hmm. Tell everybody what a counterculture is.
So, when I was looking it up, and this is another thing that God gave me and kind of added to my lexicon, I had never heard of this word before.
Before you started using it, I hadn't heard of it.
But it was something that existed way before me. Back in the day, what we would call like hippies. Mm-hmm. Where people were talking about love and joy and peace and no war. And I think that was like, maybe it was the 80s. I always get the time wrong. It might have been the 80s. But I think it definitely was the 80s. But this was counterculture. Mm-hmm. This is one of the larger counterculture movements because it was about love and joy.
I think it made a resurgence in the 80s, but hippies were around in the 60s and 70s.
Yes, definitely. So, and
ain't nothing new under the sun.
It's not. But one of the reasons why that movement didn't last, because one, we can get into a whole nother thing about the government. The government kind of, tried to end it for its reasons, but also because it was also built on love and joy and peace, but it's also built on sex and drugs, which is not something that is very sustainable. And as I studied, the history of counterculture, I also realized that Jesus was a counterculture.
Definitely.
Counterculture is to do things that aren't part of the cultural norm. normalizing kindness is something that we say, all of us say that we value, but it has, like, we have so many limitations. I will be kind as long as it doesn't make me late for work. I will be kind as long as I'm having a good day.
Yep.
You know,
I'll be respectful when they respect me.
yes, like it's so many limitations, but Jesus healed on the Sabbath, even though it was against the law and against cultural norms. He spent time with prostitutes and debt collectors and all these people, even though they say the people were not worth his time. You know, it's just so many things. Like, you know, he went to heal people, and they said that this was an emergency, but he would stop and heal somebody else. You know, it's just so many things that God has just shown me, like, this is what it means to be counterculture. And throughout, you know, just our life and generations, God's kingdom has always been counterculture to what our normal culture is.
Absolutely. See, what did Tara say? Tara said, break it down. This is good information. Yes. And good morning, Naima. But, so you are a successful businessman. And so often in life, when we see people that are successful or they've gained some measure of success, they think that life has been easy for them. But in your bio, you tell us about some struggles that you had early on in life. Talk to the people a little bit about where you started at versus where you are today. I
went from staying in homeless shelters and battered women shelters. I remember searching through at the shelter, searching through clothing that was donated, just so I could, you know, be able to express myself. And this is also what kind of led me to fashion. Like, clothing is a form of expression. Like, people see your clothes and they can make a judgment about your culture, about your, you know, your level of confidence, all these things before you even open your mouth.
Absolutely.
And being able to, with somebody who had low self-esteem at that time, being able to find something that didn't, you know, that would express who I wanted to be. And it's hard to do that when you're searching through somebody else's clothing, and these are not the clothes that you picked out.
Right.
So going through that process of homelessness and low self-esteem, and God taking me to, you know, just this person, this creative person that I never thought I was, or this person who wants to engage in community and be around people, like, has just been an amazing process.
Yeah.
And often, you know, we think if we're not open to change, like, we think that we are this person that we haven't fully formed to grow to be. Like, growing up, I had bad relationships. Family, I wasn't treated well with a lot of different, you know, people, and just kind of going from state to state. I traveled a lot.
Okay.
So being the new kid gets the gets all the shade.
Yeah.
Getting in fights, kind of all these things, and I thought I didn't like people. And
I didn't like people. I thought I didn't like people either.
And I thought I would be fine getting a job where I was by myself, isolated.
Oh, I didn't know you like my twin, my fraternal twin. Because you're telling my story. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
But as I grew to, you know, God tells me more about myself and kind of reading the Word. That's one of the things I like about the Bible, that the Bible is never changing. You know, culture will change, you know, depending on what's cool and what's not. So I found out about myself that I am also for community. I need that, like, I love being by myself just as much as I love being with other people.
Yeah.
And you know, somebody thinking they didn't like people, my name means friend.
Wow.
Alvin, my first name means friend.
I didn't know your first name was Alvin.
That is.
Well, welcome, friend.
So, but it's funny how you find out all this stuff. Like, you think that you are this way because the enemy is trying to keep you from where you're supposed to be. And then it just takes, you know, being open enough to listen and research and learn about yourself. And you realize this is a totally opposite situation.
Yep, you learned that you had favor from the beginning.
Yep.
The creativeness, your name, all of your experiences from homelessness to CEO.
Yep.
That
sounds like a book.
It is a title right there. Homelessness to CEO. I'm gonna need you to write that. But it's just amazing, community connection when you sit down and start talking to people. Because it's like you're telling my story. I remember when I first got saved and I told God, I was like, I just want to love you. And I heard it and I felt it. It was like, you can't love me if you don't love my people.
Yes.
And when he says my people, he's not talking about saved people. He's not just talking about believers. He's talking about everybody that he created.
Yeah.
So that taught me a level of, it took me a while because, you know, I'm working from a place of pain.
Yeah.
And hurt and sorrow. But I realized that in order for me to live the joyful life that God had for me, I had to open my heart up.
Yeah.
Because I had built this self-imposed prison trying to protect myself, but all it did was isolate me.
And we will get so used to that prison because it's what we know, and just keep going back to it and going back to it. I was reading a book and I forget the name of it, but it was talking about the two systems of like your brain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one is like, you know, your brain that is more complex, and then the other part is like your simple. I think it was like level 1 and level 2.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, like we go through our lives like on autopilot so much that our body becomes our brain. Like I remember, you know, think about times like that you were thinking about something and it was a Saturday and you end up driving to work and you almost at the building. Or, you know, I can think about times where maybe I'm like fasting or something and I'm about to put some food in my mouth and it don't even register.
That. I'm like, I put it right here. Like, and actually, last Saturday, I got up, went in the bathroom, and started getting ready, and then getting ready to get my son up and take him to camp. And I'm like, dawned on me. And I said, it's the day, Saturday? And so I actually had to go get my phone and check the date and date. Because I was like, I was just going through the motions.
Yeah.
Things you wake up and you get up and do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, for so many of us, our body becomes our brain, and we're just operating on autopilot. We're operating on, you know, the emotions that we have. You know, we're just cycling through those same emotions. Yep.
And Tara said, I'm so glad both of you did and are doing the work to heal. We need y'all. We need you too, Tara. You are absolutely instrumental in what counterculture is. From the very moment I met you, you've been a counterculturalist. And I love the fact that you still are. So, but I really appreciate everybody that's watching today. Thank you so much. We appreciate all the comments and all the hearts. We see y'all. But so you're here in the Joyful Living Garden. Tell me what brings you joy.
Helping people. Like I stewardship brings me so much joy. Like when like if I'm at an event and people are moving around me, like cleaning, and even when I go to a restaurant, like it's hard for me not to help.
Yeah.
Like it just brings me a lot of joy to be able to serve and be able to do things. But I've also learned that I have to find a balance, because, you know, even though I am, you know, in God's likeness, I'm still not God, and I have a cup that will that will eventually run out.
We have to take time to refill our cup.
Yeah.
Refilling our cup. So when you help people, we end up being helped in the process. So just to tell you a quick little story, I remember being in a grocery store years ago, and there was an elderly Caucasian man standing there and looking down at his list, and I could tell he was, you know, very old because he was shaking and, you know, he was concentrating hard. So I just walked up to him, sir, can I help you with something? So he was like, my wife made this list. I don't know what she's talking about. I was like, let me see, let me help you. So I helped him get the 2 or 3 things that was on that list, went on about my day. But as I'm about to get in my car, I hear somebody calling after me. And I turn around, and it was this man. So I walk up to him. We stood in the parking lot and talked for over an hour. Wow. But at the end of that conversation, he says, I know you're one of his. He's like, I've been saved for a long time. Baby, what's your name? I'm going to be praying for you for the rest of my life.
Wow.
And he wrote my name. He took a piece of paper out, and it was other names on the paper. He took and wrote my name down. He's like, I probably won't ever see you again, but I want you to remember that every day I'm praying for you.
That's amazing.
The little things that we do, that you never know the impact it's going to have.
And it's so much about our culture that tries to tell us that we're not for like community, or you're only for your community, not this person's community, because that's other. And like if we are image bearers of God, like God is for a community. if you believe in the Trinity, like you have to know that God has always had a community.
Yeah.
And how can you, you know, you say God is love, and if we are products of God, like we should experience love and show love. But you can't show love if you don't have someone to show love to.
Mm-hmm.
So God has always been in this Trinity and community that they have able to show love. Same thing with us. Like we need to be around people. We need to be able to show love to other people. It gives us so much value. Like it gives us worth.
Absolutely. So you've given us so much stuff today. It was just like I just don't even know where to go. But so let's talk about the clothing line a little bit more. Where can people find Good Steward Apparel? Are you the designer, or? I am
mainly the designer. Sometimes I partner with, you know, other people, other companies, but I am mainly the designer.
Okay. Yeah, like you always looked after he showed up this morning. I'm like, now I'm gonna wear a T-shirt. You come up here. Don't be showing me up, Al the Great, showing your greatness. I love it. I love it. And I love your hair. It's like when we are able to just express ourselves and be ourselves. Because I've had dreadlocks for years. Then I went to this big natural, and then I went to the barbershop and I said, cut it off. And I doubt very seriously I will ever have hair again. And people were like, Kim, why did you cut your hair? And I was like, because this feels like me.
Yeah.
And it's like I feel my most confident, my most self-assured, my bravest. I don't know what it is about hair, but it's a spirit to it. It gives me more courage to do things that I wouldn't have done if I had. I don't know. I can't really explain it. But I love your hair because every time I see you, it's different. It's like you got to be yourself. And
yeah. And you know, someone, like I said, someone who grew up with very low self-esteem and, you know, wanted to be seen and did things that everybody else did. The older I get, the more I'm finding myself, and the more I want to just do things because I want to do it, because I think I would like it, because it's something new, and the more that encourages you to be even more different. Thinking about the clothing line, one of the clothing brands is No Robot Streetwear, and it has the robot, and you know it is very reminding of the Ghostbuster symbol with the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, but it has the robot in there. And when God gave me that, you know, and he said, the Holy Spirit said
don't be a robot.
Don't be a robot, but we are trapped in legalism. Like everybody, we know that we are all unique, but everyone is trying to trap people in this box of being like everybody else.
Yeah.
And when someone else doesn't fit that box, we isolate them and put them on the outskirts of society when they don't fit into that box. But we are all unique. We were not created on an assembly line like robots. All of us are different. So that is one of the things that I really strive for. That's why that brand is so near and dear to my heart at this point in my life, because I spent so much time trying to be a robot, trying to be like everybody else, and now I have found my uniqueness, my greatness.
Yeah. So I lovingly refer to myself as a weirdo. And people was like, don't call yourself weird. I was like, oh, no. It's not what you think, baby. I was like, my weirdo, I love it. I was like, because when I was younger, I knew I was different. I was like, but that being different made me feel isolated, and I didn't know how to handle it. I was like, but now I realize that all these things that make me different, that make me weird, that's my greatest asset.
Yes.
Those are the things that make me me. The things that I want to run around in the woods with no shoes on, that's unique to me. It's not unique to just me, but stop trying to hide those things that make you different from other people and celebrate them. Yes, I'm a weirdo, and I love it. So I'm teaching my son. I was like, what makes you different? Celebrate those things.
And it's what's going to connect you to somebody else.
And that's what God is using to set you apart. Nobody can be better than you. I'm a weirdo. I love it. I'll tell anybody that I'm a weirdo. I like things that are different. And it's like, but when I was younger, I was like, that made me feel ashamed. Like, nothing against anybody who does, but I don't really care for purses. And I carried one when I was younger, just so I mean a nice bag.
Yeah.
But then I got to this point, I was like, why are you carrying this purse? You lose it more than anything because you don't care nothing about it, and everything in it is just gone.
Yes.
So I'm like, stop carrying a purse because that's not you. you don't have to be like everybody else. You are created in God's image and great. You are unique and wonderful and weird. So let's celebrate who we are.
Definitely. One of the t-shirts we have for No Robots, it says, and it's one of my favorites. It says, "Today's weirdo is often tomorrow's genius." Like they
I
will
need to get that one.
like all these people that they call weird, Steve Jobs, and all these people probably growing up, they probably thought they called them nerdy and just thought they were weird. And then now we're calling them, oh, he's such a genius.
I got a genius bar and all of this kind.
Yes.
They're like, yes, it's like, so don't despise, two things. Don't despise your humble beginnings, because you talked about homelessness and being in shelters. And the other thing is, don't despise the things that make you different, the things that make you stand out. Like, celebrate those things and use them to set yourself apart with.
Yeah.
So,
before we move on, like one of the things that you said about carrying a purse, and it really kind of touched me, because again, with that uniqueness, like we have these roles that tradition tries to define us as.
yeah.
And it is one of the most aggravating things for me as someone who I have 2 girls, I have 2 boys, and you probably growing up, you probably started carrying a purse because maybe they say, oh, that's being a tomboy, or all these things that we try to put people in this box, like especially women, trying to put them in a box where women do this, women have long hair, women wear makeup, women wear purses. And if you are not doing these things, you are carrying some type of masculine energy, and that's not what it is.
Okay. Good morning, Robin and Cornelius.
But I just, that's one of the things that we really need to get away from, and I think we're doing that. But I think it has come with a lot of consequences of what we try to say is male and female energy, and then you have people think like they're something that they're not. They're other than female, when they're actually like. You just don't do other things like everybody else.
Yeah.
Like the Bible doesn't say that to be a female that you got to carry a purse.
And you know what, that reminds me, because when I was in my 20s, I can remember a man actually asking me, was I a lesbian? And I was like, why would, I'm dating you. Why are you asking that? And he was like,
he was dating.
I was like, huh? I'm confused. But then he said, well, you don't carry a purse and all, these other things. I was like, I don't like purses, and I used to carry one, but I would lose it more than anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. It was like, it makes people question, are you quote unquote normal? No, I'm not normal. And it was like, but I'm also not a lesbian. And that's not saying that lesbians are not normal. I'm not saying anything against that community. I'm just saying that I wasn't, and the things that I did or did not do made people question me. And I'm like, can you just be my friend or my boyfriend without, because I was like, where did that come from? We were just sitting on the couch, but
we
labels that we assign to people.
Because our brains like want to process things easily.
They want to compartmentalize
Yeah,
things.
so we need to be able to put somebody in this box so I can process who you are, versus thinking that this person has multiple levels to them. Like, I need to put you in this box so I can give you a name.
Well, I have really, really enjoyed this conversation, and it could go on for all day long. But I know y'all got things to do this Saturday morning, and I'm sure you're a busy CEO. So tell everybody how they can purchase from Good Steward Apparel, how they can reach you, keep up with what's going on with Al the Great, and just tell everybody what they need to know.
I want as many people as possible to join the counterculture. And whether that is a purchase from us, you can do a whole number of different things. But the first thing I want you to do is just accept and make the commitment to yourself that you will normalize kindness. And our culture has mainstreamed shame and cruelty. And humans are defined by our ability to show kindness. That is what's supposed to separate us from animals and any other species.
And
but
Cornelius just said, just accept people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we've gotten to this place where, people are just cruel just off the jump. So take that commitment to yourself that you are going to normalize kindness no matter your time, no matter how you feel, no matter whether you like that community or you know that person or whatever it is. you know, accept people and just normalize kindness. And then I want you to also support Good Steward Apparel. We are not a nonprofit, but we use our profit to support nonprofits, and we also use our profits to do the work that we're doing, you know, all of our revenue. So go to goodstewardapparel.com. We have 3 brands: No Robot Streetwear, Good Steward Apparel, and B Athletics Unlimited. And it is all catered to a counterculturalist and someone who wants to have a good steward lifestyle. So you know, just support us in that way and make sure that you are being a counterculturalist.
I like that word, lifestyle. It's like, this is just not something we're doing for 30 or 90 days. This is a lifestyle.
Yes.
Which means it's a part of who we are. It's a part of what we do. It's a part of this community. It's a part of connecting. It's a part of being kind. I just love everything about this. So we're going to go ahead and wrap things up today, guys. Is there anything that you would like to say to the people before we finish?
I want to thank you for inviting me to the garden. Like, I made it. And look, yeah, I got the mug. I sent the picture too. I got the mug. I love this mug.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad that, you know, everything that you're doing. I remember, you know, being so overwhelmed because I like to be in the background. I remember being overwhelmed with the amount of vision and purpose God has given me. But one of the things that God showed me, and I started to see, you know, in everyday life, when you kind of come up out of yourself and just your stress, you see that God has also put other people here doing the same work in different ways.
Yeah.
So I am appreciative of you also doing the work of counterculturalism and everybody else, and that we can come together and partner together and have these conversations. Like, I love it because we can't do it on our own.
We absolutely cannot. And I love you. Thank you for sharing that with everybody. But and anybody, if you want to be on In the Garden with Joyful Living, send me an inbox message, comment on the video, because whether you're a business owner or you're a mother, you're a father, you're a school bus driver, whatever it is, if you want to be on In the Garden with Joyful Living, let me know, because we want to be able to share different perspectives of people all across the world, because we need to hear from you. The world needs to hear from us. So guys, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Al, thank you so much for finally making it to the garden, man. This has been wonderful, and I am so ecstatic that you are here with us on this morning and sharing the vision that God has given you, your story, your background, because people can take a look at someone and automatically assume that it was easy for them.
No, it's still hard.
It's still hard. And what I tell people often is that life is full of hardships, but it doesn't have to be hard. You get to decide that.
Yep.
It's like your perspective, the way you look at things, the way you view things, and what you decide to do with that information. Because everything that happens is just information. How you going to use it?
Yep. You got to reframe it.
Got to reframe it. But guys, thank you for watching. I love you so much. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.